feet.
It seems that there's a sort of a scenic road overlay corridor for Owens Road. I'm not familiar with the zoning in the area, but you would think that if there's a scenic or a view shed on Owens Road and on Cheechunk, that you wouldn't put this substation in the middle of an open field, that you'd find something that had a bit more screening, and if you were going to screen it with landscaping, you'd put some much larger and more dense trees, is my comment.
Okay. By the way, before we continue, is anyone here for the ADC discussion? If they are, they're in the wrong side of the room. They would be on the other side of the room. Okay, that's fine. All right. Any other comments on this particular input? Yes.
Hi, my name is Kathy McGrath. I live on 12 White Oak Terrace. I don't live near this project, but I can definitely share in the concern of the residents. And my question is, if there's 3 existing facilities that already serve this area and that are outdated, why wouldn't the consideration be to update and to apply those funds to existing substations that are probably just outdated? It sounds like you're ignoring facilities that probably just need to have whatever the new capacity would require.
Okay.
It's like instead of leveraging what's existing, you're just looking to move on to something new.
Could you answer that question?
When we look at the system and we look at those other stations that have reached capacity, the best analogy I can use is that when we provide power out to the community, we're doing that from a substation, and it's similar to, again, the breaker panel in your house. The areas that we talked about, Dolson Avenue, we talked about Route 211, and even the substation on 17A near Zareski, there's a limit to the capacity of that station, not only for the facilities, and they're not necessarily outdated. East Wallkill and Shoemaker are relatively updated stations. The South Goshen substation, again, dates back to the 50s, but there's been upgrades, and there'll be future upgrades for that facility. But if you can picture, there is a limit for the circuitry that leaves the station, that it's sort of like running the extension cord from your house out to your pool. It's not the exposure and the circuitry and the number of miles going from those remote facilities have reached their maximum, and that we really need to put a source where the load is, and that load is now in the town of Goshen area. And so while those other stations exist and they're maintained and we upgrade them when we need to, they're serving the load in their region, and that region now has, and the load in the area has grown where we can't reach the town of Goshen from those remote sites anymore. And so we start to have reliability problems, we have capacity problems, and we can't switch things in storms. And so we really need a new source and sort of a new, if you will, spoke on a wheel that can send circuits out to this area and feed the town of Goshen. Those remote areas are running out of gas to serve this area because of the increased load.
Okay. In the back, can you, where's the microphone? Send it down.
I'm Ken Woolley from 12 Knapp Terrace in Hamilton, Newport. What has caused these existing substations to reach capacity?
Growth, I do believe.
Okay, so this is the predecessor of more growth?
From my I mean, that's an open-ended question. There's going to be growth in our community over time, and I guess their strategic planners have...
It sounds like there's health issues here?
Well, that's what the people are saying, that there's health issues. They question. I'm not an expert on that.
That's got to be proven. Or disproved.
Yes.
Obviously, the consensus of the public is no dice.
Okay.
All right?
Yeah. Thank you for your comment. Oh, could you pass it over this direction, please?
To your right.
Yes, you mentioned about the ambient sounds.
Can you say your name and...
sorry.
Yeah.
Bruce Wiggin, 32 Owens Road.
Okay.
You mentioned about the ambient sound levels. Have you already measured the ambient sound levels of this community versus other communities where you've placed these? And then you can tell us that at the threshold of your property, you will not exceed what already exists?
For this site, we actually do a site-specific sound study. So there's recording measurements taking today the way the ambient is now between the existing residences, road noise, etc. We do 24-hour monitoring. And then basically the noise from the transformers, which again, we pay a premium for them to be low noise transformers. Those are modeled and we show what the sound would be and how it disperses over the property. And basically the sound coming from the station does not go above the existing ambient, and in addition to that, it's well below the town of Goshen noise ordinance, but more importantly, from an ambient level, it's at or below ambient. So as far as it affecting neighbors, our report shows that basically the noise stays on the property.
So you've already measured the ambient noise levels in the neighborhood?
Absolutely.
And then you've gone to similar stations and monitored the noise level coming off?
Absolutely. And we have a sound report that can certainly be submitted for the record, and that's available.
Now, we have the wires already coming into this. Now, I imagine there's going to be a lot of wires coming out of this system to support all these circuits that you're adding, which is why you're adding it. How will those be routed through this community? Because this is a relatively rural area, and we don't want to see poles with 6, 7 sets of wires on them all of a sudden obscuring our views, because that is a scenic area there.
Absolutely, and that's a very good point. And I'm sorry for my back, but the building that we talked about, which is really houses the circuits, those circuits will head out underground, and they'll go out underground for quite a bit. In the beginning, some of this is under design, so I apologize for the lack of detail, but you'll have underground exits that'll go as far as Echo Lake. You'll have underground exits that'll go as far as Hartley Road. There'll be underground exits that do rise on existing circuitry that's on Cheechunk and on Owens Road. But, you're correct in the fact that where before, some of the circuitry in this area is sort of at the tail end of the system, because we talked about that far-reaching feed that's coming from remote substations. Now this becomes a source, so there is getaways that are going to be really underground and heading out and rising to some existing facilities. There'll be some improvements along Cheechunk, but as far as there'll be a lot of underground that's going to be meant to keep the view shed as clean as possible.
When that construction goes on, how is it going to affect the community? If you're going to be putting those circuits all underground, you're going to be disrupting traffic on those roads for quite some time, I imagine.
The station itself and the construction of it is around a 9-month process from start to finish, from clearing to doing circuit work and putting the facility in service. So there would definitely be some underground work, and we would work certainly with the town and the neighbors to try to make that as minimal as possible. But certainly when you're doing some excavation in the road, we would go through normal road closings that any utility would go through when we're out on the road. But we'd certainly work with the town to minimize any traffic issues or issues with any of the neighbors.
Thank you.
Yes.
John Stein, 33 Glen Drive. What guarantees can O&R give to the residents? I don't live near there, but I'm close enough, that there would absolutely be no health problems whatsoever related, and that damage wouldn't be done like it was done in Sugarloaf. If anyone saw the Chronicle,
Yes.
the Rosso property was ruined and has no value anymore. What kind of guarantees, and I mean solid guarantees, can the company give the residents that there'll be absolutely no health problem and property would not be diminished in value or destroyed? Guarantees.
Well, from the magnetic field health standpoint, just to maybe give everyone a little magnetic field 101, several years ago, 15 years ago, there was a big explosion of information about EMF and magnetic fields and radiation coming off transmission facilities. anytime that you have electricity and you have current flow, you're going to have a magnetic field associated with it. So that's, here in the lights, it's everywhere, your clock radio at home, there's magnetic fields. Through a tremendous amount of money and a lot of study, and the research